The offensive line for Baltimore, to me, is the biggest tipping point of this game. And nobody's talking about this nationally. The Ravens have 3 new starters. Andrew Voorhees at guard. He's never played a game in his life in the NFL, ever. He's never played an NFL game. McCarry at right tackle is the one guy who has a decent amount of experience. And Falele at right guard, I think has started, forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, I think he started 5 games in his career. So you have a left guard with no experience, a right guard with, I think, about 5 games worth of experience, and a right tackle who's bounced all over the offensive line, has kind of been more of a super sub than a starter. And Tyler Lindenbaum has just come off of the injury report because he's been in a non-contact jersey most of the summer.
Right.
And you're telling me that offensive line has to go against Spags with 80,000 people screaming at him. That's a problem.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, we made it to game week. Welcome into That Football Show, presented by our friends at Holiday Distillery and Ben Holiday, bottled in bond bourbon. You're going to make sure you want to crack some of that open for the Chiefs' season opener on Thursday night. I'm so excited. I just made myself at a loss for words. Tucker Franklin hanging out here with Matt Verderame. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good. I too am excited to drive out to Kansas City on Wednesday. We'll cover the game Thursday. And look forward to seeing how it all starts to shake out.
A lot of interesting moving parts going into it. Obviously, we're going to talk about that here, but we also talk about the rest of the NFL as well on That Football Show. Right. That's why this is called That Football Show and not That Chiefs Show. If it was That Chiefs Show, we would pigeonhole ourselves just to the Chiefs. But we talk about the whole league. Really excited to talk about everything going on for week 1. A lot of storylines going on in the NFL, but we'll start front half of the show talking Chiefs. Huge matchup against the Ravens. Looking at it here, Matt. You know what? Let's just start high level. How do you feel from a Chiefs perspective about this matchup going into it?
I feel like, historically speaking, the Chiefs match up well with Baltimore.
Yeah.
They just have. I mean, Jackson is 1-4 in his career against Kansas City. And the one game they won was because Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I'm pretty confident Sam Bucker would have hit that field goal in that game. So, I mean, if you look at Lamar in his career against the Chiefs, it has not been great. I mean, it's not, and I'm not even just talking like the 1-4. I mean, I'm talking about you really just dive into his career numbers, right? Like, you saw him as a rookie. He went 13-24 for 147 yards, and they lost. Okay. They then saw the Chiefs week 3 the following year, went 22-43 for 267, and they lost again. Then they saw them in week 3 of 2020, and he went 15-28 for 97 yards, and they lost. And then the one game they won. They won 36-35, won 18-26 for 239 with a touchdown and 2 picks. He wasn't like he really. They ran for 107 yards that night, so like factor that in. Fair enough. And then we saw the playoff game, right? I mean, they didn't play for a few years, and they saw the playoff game. Which, if you look at his numbers, he threw for 272, but like a lot of that, he was 20-37. It wasn't good. Like I just think it's hard for the Ravens against the Chiefs because the Chiefs are very willing to do what a lot of teams are not willing to do, and that is to get in the man coverage, put 8 guys in the box, and just say, go ahead. Throw the football. Go nuts. And I think that's what they're going to do in this game. I think the Chiefs are going to put 1 million guys down the box, and they're going to try to overwhelm a very, very inexperienced offensive line. And they're just going to put McDuffie on Flowers when they need to and say, fine, go ahead. Go ahead. Beat us. And I think that's a very hard thing for Baltimore to deal with. Whereas a lot of teams, they don't want to get in that man. They'll sit in zone. It's a little easier to pick apart. You know, I think the Chiefs are just more aggressive. And I think that takes some of the starch out of Baltimore's attack.
Looking at this Ravens wide receiver room, one of the big, I guess, concerns out of Baltimore has always been the weapons around Lamar Jackson in terms of wide receiver room. They haven't necessarily had that top wide receiver for him. Their wide receiver room this year consists of Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar. Hello, you're still in the league. Tylan Wallace, Devontae Walker, and Deontay Hardy. So
They better get Flowers stays healthy.
Correct. Not a star-studded group. Zay Flowers was a first-round pick. Same thing with Rashad Bateman. Both first-round picks, but like Nelson Aguilar's your wide receiver 3, and like Tez Walker, you're hoping kind of turns into something, your 4th-round pick from this year out of North Carolina. I was a big Tylan Wallace fan, but he hasn't really done anything. So like their wide receiver room isn't a star-studded wide receiver room. Their big addition, obviously, is Derrick Henry. Yep. Look, very good football player. He is almost 40 though, so it's like that doesn't exaggeration. But yeah, I don't know how much Derrick Henry truthfully worries me.
Well, my thing with Derrick Henry is like, look, I think he's still a terrific player. The problem is like their issue's never been running the football. Like you never looked at Baltimore and went, man, if they just had a better running game. Like nobody's ever said that.
Right.
Their running game was fine last year. They ran for almost 300 yards more than any other football team last year. They ran for over 2,600 yards. Their problem is their volume passing game. You see, that is the one big lie about the Ravens, and it's been this way for years. Whenever you say something about the passing game, which ultimately is some kind of an indictment on Lamar, right or wrong, it just is. People then fire back at you from the nerd community, and they're like, well, but their efficiency is blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, because they never throw football.
Right.
Like, yes, their efficiency is terrific. The problem with that is when you can't run the ball well, okay, in the 4 or 5 games that they won't run the ball well in, they lose because they don't throw the ball for volume. Mm-hmm. And that's where, if you're the Chiefs, to me, look, I think the biggest thing about this game, first down. If the Chiefs can get Baltimore into 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, and back, I think they win the game. And I think they might even win the game going away. But, like, those are the games. To me, Baltimore has to be on schedule offensively. Like, the Chiefs can get into 3rd and 7, and Mahomes is like, that's fine, no problem. And just hits Worthy on a crosser for 12 yards, or hits Rice, or hits Kelce, or whoever. I understand the Ravens have a good tight end in Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers is a good player. The problem with the Ravens is, like, if McDuffie's on Flowers, he's probably not going off. And they can do things like Justin Reed or Drew Tranquil can play Mark Andrews. And it's just, the Ravens are not built to play that way. But I would posit, because I don't want to bury the lead for me, everybody's going to look at the quarterbacks, and that's who's going to be the focal point of these games, whenever it's Lamar and it's Mahomes. The offensive line for Baltimore, to me, is the biggest tipping point of this game. And nobody's talking about this nationally. The Ravens have 3 new starters. Andrew Voorhees at guard. He's never played a game in his life in the NFL. Ever. He's never played an NFL game. McCarry at right tackle is the one guy who has a decent amount of experience. And Falele at right guard, I think has started, forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, I think he started 5 games in his career. So you have a left guard with no experience, a right guard with, I think, about 5 games worth of experience, and a right tackle who's bounced all over the offensive line, has kind of been more of a super sub than a starter. And Tyler Lindenbaum has just come off of the injury report because he's been in a non-contact jersey most of the summer.
Right.
And you're telling me that offensive line has to go against Spags with 80,000 people screaming at him. That's a problem. Like, Chris Jones against Andrew Voorhees, it's a problem. Or like, if they're sliding Linderbaum that way, the Chiefs are just going to go, okay, cool, guess what? We're lining Chris Jones up over the right tackle.
Right.
I mean, I think that is, if you want to point to me, the one thing in this game and say, that's the thing that I look at and just go, that's the problem for the right, that's it. Because if they can't block, they can't run. Because one thing about Henry, he's not a scat back. Like, he's running between the tackles.
Right.
And if they can't block, and this turns into one of these things with 2nd and 8 all the time, well, it's Spagnuolo. The Chiefs aren't dropping 8. Like, they're bringing guys. So I am very curious to see in this game, what is the communication like? I'll give you another thing. What is it like in terms of, do they jump, have a few false starts? First, they have the noise. Second of all, Lamar Jackson didn't play in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no game experience with this line and Lamar Jackson in his cadence.
Right.
Everything. I mean, you say, it's a little thing. That's a big thing in games like this, where all of a sudden, you know what? You had 2nd and 6, you had a good roll, now 2nd and 11. I just, if there was one thing that would tip me in this game one way, it's that offensive line. That is the one area of either of these teams I look at and go, that could be just a death sentence for Baltimore if that thing goes south.
They spent 2 picks in the 2024 draft on offensive lineman Roger Rosengarten, a guy that I, in the draft, did like. Thought he was pretty good. It doesn't look like he's going to get the start at tackle. And then Nick Sumak as well. He was a 7th-round pick. So, look, I'm not going to hold it against you if you don't recognize that name. That's okay. But they did try to at least address the offensive line in the draft portion of the things. But as you mentioned, that offensive line is fairly thin. And you mentioned Mark Andrews, too. I want to go back to Isaiah Likely. I think he stepped in really well last year for them. And I think that they actually do have a pretty decent tight end duo with both Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina. He had a good career at Coastal Carolina as well. So he was on those good Coastal teams. The one that beat, I don't know if you remember this game. Do you remember when BYU went to Coastal and they beat wild game, by the way. They went to Coastal. I think both teams were undefeated. And then Coastal ended up beating Zach Wilson and BYU. Big game for Coastal. Maybe one of the biggest games in Coastal Carolina history. And we were at the Shrine Bowl. And I believe we talked to Isaiah Likely about that game. And those guys were like, yeah, that was awesome. Like, that was the best game.
Shots clear, right?
Hell yeah. Shots up, baby.
There we go. Didn't talk about Big Pen go there?
Maybe.
I feel like that's how I know that's cool.
Could be.
Listen, no, I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel out of Baltimore.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd rather have Likely out there than one of these other receivers, right? So,
right, yeah.
I think you're probably going to see a lot of that. And look, this is a team, too. They play with a fullback. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of power out of the Ravens. I think it's what you're going to see. You're going to see 2 tight ends. You're going to see a fullback. And I mean, Patrick Ricard's like 300 pounds. Okay. I would expect that that's going to kind of be the way that they plow forward in this game. And again, it makes sense if you're the Ravens. Like, that's how you play football. I mean, that's what you do. Again, the problem with that is, A, if you fall behind.
Yeah.
And B, if the Chiefs can limit Flowers, the explosiveness just is not there.
For sure.
I mean, it's not a team like, look, the Rashad Bateman hype train's been waiting to leave the station now for 3 years. Okay. Rashad Bateman had 367 yards receiving last year. And he played in 16 games. It wasn't like he's been hurt a lot. Like, he played 16 games last year.
Yeah.
Would you take a guess at the longest reception of his season last year?
Oh, gosh. 14 yards.
29.
Okay.
So, but not exactly like stretching the field.
Right.
Nelson Aguilar, here's something you won't believe. This is year 9 for Nelson Aguilar. Year 9. Okay? In fact, I'm sorry, no. It's year 10 for Nelson Aguilar.
Wow.
Played 9 seasons. Nelson Aguilar last year had 381 yards. Year before that had 362 yards. Again. Another guy who you're not exactly like, man, just going to take the game over.
Right.
I mean, it really is going to be a lot on Zay Flowers, who last year, if you're not as familiar with Baltimore, 77 catches, 858 yards, really nice season. Like, really showed he can get the job done. Now, here's one thing that I found interesting, and I don't know how interesting is this to anybody else. He only, as good as he was, he only had one game over 80 receiving yards in the season.
Oh, wow.
Shocked by that. Now, they had 106 against Miami on 3 catches, which is hilarious. And then in the Chiefs game, he had 115 yards, his career high. Now, nobody else did a damn thing.
Right.
But, just interesting to me to point that out. So, that all being said, this is not a team that you're penciling anybody in for 100 yards receiving.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not really who they are. And that's why, again, to my point earlier, if you can stop them on first down, it becomes very, very difficult for them to really continue to convert. And I'm just sitting here, I'm looking it up because I'm just curious now. I'm pretty sure that Miami game, for Flowers was the only time anybody had 100 yards receiving for them last year.
Wow.
I'm like 99% positive. Because Bateman didn't do it. Other than that game, Flowers didn't do it. Aguilar didn't do it. Andrews didn't do it. I mean, this is they don't. It's not the way they play. They don't play with big volume in the passing game. Yet nobody did it. That's the only player.
That's crazy.
It's the only time all year anybody did it. It took them scored 56 points against the Dolphins. Okay, so
wow,
they're just not built that way. Mm-hmm. If you can get it up on the Ravens, or if you can limit them in the run game, it's a problem. Like they're not built to sit back there and throw the ball all over the field.
Kind of going off the running back room, too, we did mention, obviously, they had the addition of Derrick Henry, but they also had the departure of two of their previous running backs. They're in L.A., both of them, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. They have Justice Hill and Rasheen Ali also on the running back roster. You mentioned Ricard, too, because they do run with the fullback. Let's flip to the other side with the Chiefs' offense now going up against this defense. A ton of question marks with this Ravens defense. They don't have a lot of guys back, starter-wise, and they have a whole new defensive staff. And they've got everything new is basically for this defense with a Chiefs offense that seems like it's been the best since like 2019, since Tyreek Hill was on the team. I don't think that spells very good things for the Baltimore Ravens, truthfully.
I will say this with the Ravens. They have a lot of potential with this defense, but I also think they have a ton of questions going into this game. Yeah. I don't know where the edge rush is coming from. I mean, people say, well, Kyle Van Noy had 9 sacks last year. Kyle Van Noy 9 quarterback hits last year. I mean, the sack numbers compared to his actual pass rush production are outrageous. Owe, former first-round pick, Adafe Owe, never really done much. It's really on Matabike. Like, really on Matabike.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't do it, there's just not a whole hell of a lot else up front. Roquan Smith is a great linebacker, but he's not a guy who's going to, rack up a bunch of sacks. Like, he's an inside linebacker. He's not an outside linebacker. He had a sack and a half last year. He's not, he's like a Nick Bolton type. I mean, he's not going to be somebody who's in the backfield all game long on passing. That is, to me, the biggest problem the Ravens have in this game is just the fronts in general on both sides of the ball. I think the Chiefs should win up front on both sides. Matabike is terrific, but the Chiefs' interior of the offensive line is probably the best interior in football. Right. I think the tackles are the weak point for the Chiefs, and they can, or at least the unknown anyway, with Sean Mate. I don't know. I mean, are Van Noy and Owe keeping them awake at night? I mean, I probably not. I think it'll be very interesting, too, to see what happens with Travis Kelce in this game.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
The AFC title game, we all spent a week going, man, it's going to be him and Kyle Hamilton. Who's going to win that matchup? Well, the Chiefs threw the ball at Travis Kelce 11 times, and he had 11 catches. He destroyed Kyle Hamilton in that game. Okay? And by the way, that's no shade on Hamilton. For my money, he's the best safety in football. Like, I love watching Kyle Hamilton. Travis Kelce put Kyle Hamilton in a blender for 4 quarters in that game. Whatever he needed to get a catch, he got one. If you're the Ravens, Roquan Smith's a great player. He is not a great guy in coverage.
Right.
What do they do now? Like, how do they place? And the other thing is, like, last year, if you're the Ravens, you didn't have to worry about Chiefs going up over the top. You do this year.
Yeah.
So do they play 3 safeties and play Hamilton on Kelce? Do they play 2 safeties and just try to bracket Kelce? Do they say, hey, look, we're going to play man-on-man with Humphrey and Rice in the slot, and we're going to try to maybe bracket Kelce? I'm very curious how that works. Last year, the Ravens were not good against the run. They and the Chiefs both gave up 4.5 yards per carry. Okay. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting. But the Ravens have a new defensive coordinator. They lost Geno Stone. They lost Patrick Queen. They lost Jadeveon Clowney. Like, this is a different team. I'll be very curious to see how it shakes out.
From what I've heard inside of the Ravens, is they're pretty confident in what the cornerback room looks like. They do get Nate Wiggins in the draft last year. They got Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa, 2 corners that I think were very good additions in the draft. I was pretty high on TJ Tampa. out of Iowa State, but they also have, Marlon Humphrey, and they have Braden Stevens and Jalen Armour Davis, and like their cornerbacks are pretty solid. Like I think they have a pretty solid cornerback room, and a guy like Nate Wiggins, can he stay step for step with Xavier Worthy if they wanted to put him on him? Probably not, because he's the fastest guy that they got out there, but Nate Wiggins still pretty quick. Like he ran a pretty decent 40 out there, and I think that they can probably put him on Xavier Worthy. I think, they've got Marlon Humphrey, obviously. You mentioned Kyle Hamilton, how he mixes into all that too. And I think that was going to be really interesting to see how Travis Kelce is, because, Matt, I feel like Travis Kelce has had a fairly quiet preseason, off-season type of deal on the field, I should say. It feels like he hasn't really done a whole lot in like training camp, because it feels like, we see a big training camp highlight play of Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is seemingly quietly going into the season, I think, and a lot of, another year older, obviously, and stuff like that. He gets his readjusted contract, and there's speculation that, he's only got a couple more years left, which, probably Father Time is undefeated. Yeah. Does not lose in that regard, but I am very curious going into this game how that matchup. I'm glad you brought that up almost first, because it was one of those matchups where, outside of the trenches, that I'm like, man, if Travis Kelce goes out here and balls out on Kyle Hamilton again, right? Oh, like it could get ugly.
I just, I gotta tell you, I think Kelce, like he's 34 now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kind of think we're to the point with Kelce. Like the mustache is really lending credence to this idea as well. Like he's just to the point where he's like, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he's just gonna. What I mean by that is I think he's gonna pick his spots a little bit more now. Where when they're playing like the Panthers, maybe when you're younger, you're like, man, I'm gonna go for 200 yards in this game. And now I think for Travis Kelce, you're like, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to kind of hang out and run a few routes, catch a touchdown, go for like 4 and 50, call it a day. But then when they play a game where like they've got to have it, it's like, all right, this is one of the 5 games this year that I'm really going to rev it up for. Maybe I'm nuts, but I just, I think with Kelce, he's one of those guys that you look at him and athletically, like he's not the athlete he was 5-6 years ago, but it just doesn't really matter because he just gets open all the time. Just constantly, like, okay, I know the defense you're playing, and I know where the weak point's going to be, and I know the leverage that I have, and I'm just going to get myself open. And I just think because of the additions too, and the maturation of Rashee Rice, at least the on-field maturation of Rashee Rice, he doesn't have to do as much. They don't need him to be 1,000, 1,200 yard Travis Kelce. He might be that guy anyway, but they don't need him to be that. They need him to just be there when they need him. And that's probably less than it's been the last couple of years.
It probably is. And kind of the last question I have for you before we hit a break and start talking about all the other stuff that's going on in the NFL this last week, and since we've been haven't been recording, Hollywood Brown's injury, he's going to be held out. No Hollywood Brown revenge game. Do you think that changes the look or the potency of this offense in this game?
It could. Yeah, I mean, it could. You figure, if you're the Ravens without Hollywood Brown out there and the Chiefs are in 11 personnel, they're going 3 wide. Who the hell is the third receiver?
Yeah.
It's not Hollywood Brown. It's probably a guy you're a lot less scared of.
Hang on, Justin Watson. Y'all corner out Justin Watson? I mean, come on.
You can kind of roll a safety over the top of Worthy.
Yeah.
And you can try to bracket Kelce. Now, look, it's the Chiefs. Andy's going to find a way to get these guys open like 25 times because that's what he does. But yeah, I think it does hurt him. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game. I don't. I would be surprised if the Chiefs score 30 points in this game. I just don't see that happening. I mean, Baltimore has a very good defense, even with the changes. I will say this. I think if one team blows out the other one, it's probably the Chiefs blowing out the Ravens. And I think that would be because they just can't block. And it just turns into one of these things where it's like an avalanche defensively, and they get a couple turnovers, and they just. But I think it's probably. I think the over under is like 45.5, 46.5. It's probably like I would think the under in this game. I think it's probably something like mid-20s. I think Brown coming back will help. But and the other thing too is with Worthy, it's like it's his first game ever. You don't know,
right? Yeah,
he could do nothing. He could have 200 yards. Like who the hell knows what he's going to do? So. Yeah, it's hard to figure. I feel like I know a lot more about the Chiefs' defense than the offense. The offense, it feels like, is kind of an unknown to some degree.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
When you discover a new binge-worthy show or a song that you bump on repeat and you have to share it with your friends so they can experience just how awesome it is? That's kind of what it feels like when you discover Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's such an awesome deal. There's no way you can keep it to yourself. Friends don't let friends overpay for wireless. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan and switch to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you and your squad with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNTFS. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNTFS. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNTFS. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. But Matt, let's shift to the rest of the NFL, as there's been some pretty big storylines. When it comes to really the San Francisco 49ers have been dominating the storylines in terms of Brandon Ayuk getting a new huge contract and then the just immediate source wars going on afterwards. That was kind of an interesting thing of Adam Schefter saying like, oh yeah, the team won. And then the agent being like, oh, whatever. I don't know if I've ever seen a contract be announced and then the other party get pissed off so fast. Like it is, we won this deal, and the agent was like, that's not true. But okay, whatever makes you feel better. It was a very clear spin zone. That was the fastest spin zone I think I've ever seen a team try to have on a contract that they literally, the ink was not dry yet. The papers had not been signed yet, and the team was already trying to spin it. Unbelievable.
I appreciate, as someone in this business, that the pretense of neutrality has just gone completely out the window. It's like, it's not even like, hey, look, I'm just here to tell you the contract numbers and to tell you that it's done. Like, my personal favorite this offseason, and I'm not, look, this isn't like slam at the guy because everybody does this. It just so happens to be that this was the one I noticed and I was like, this is hilarious. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network tweeting out that Dallas signing Dalvin Cook, taking a marquee free agent off the board. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Look, man, I get it. We all get it. Like, you're in communication with the agent, and the agent's like, hey, here's what I would ask you to put out for me. And he did it because that's good business. I understand that. I 1,000% get it. I have absolutely had agents text me with a wall of text about why this guy's a great player. And you're like, yeah, man, he's not. I'll tell you the one time in my career, I texted an agent about a guy making the Pro Bowl. I was like, hey, man, congrats on so-and-so making the Pro Bowl. And he's like, yeah, he shouldn't have made it. He didn't have a good year. It's one of the most hilarious responses I've ever gotten. I was like, wow. But, look, at some point, I don't know. Do we even pretend that it's neutral anymore? It's like, all right, look, I appreciate when Woj tweets something out and he's like, so-and-so negotiated this deal. And you're like, all right, at least we're just to the point now that he's just coming right out with it. Like, it's fine. We know where it's coming from. Every once in a while, you'll see like Schefter will do that. Like, oh, David Mulligata, this deal. I almost wanted to turn into like a heel turn with like either Schefter or Rappaport.
Yeah.
Just be like, Brandon Ayuk, 4 years, 120, terrible deal for the Niners. Like this either go full team or full agent.
Right. And
just completely lean into it.
Yeah.
Like just rip the crap out of the team no matter what the deal. It could be a great deal for the team, just kill them. Like that would at least make it more entertaining.
Legitimately one of the funniest things that like I had seen was the tweet that was like from Schefter. He was like, the team, this is the same deal that was on the table in June. Just like, are they really trying to do damage control already before this deal is legitimately signed? They were. Yes, you're right. They were. I was flabbergasted by that, but maybe I shouldn't be, because as we've seen for the past, like, as you mentioned, past few weeks, it's been really bad one way or the other in terms of just the reporting on these things. And I'm glad that people are starting to see it. And it's not just like us who like are familiar with what goes on. Like, I feel like people outside of like knowing what's going on are being like, all right, that seems weird. Like, why would you include those last 3 sentences in your tweet? Like, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't pertain anything to the situation. But sticking with the Niners, they're again making headlines. As before we hopped on to record this podcast, Trent Williams gets a revised contract, ending his holdout.
Yes.
I wonder if
Guys, now he can rest easy at night knowing that he's getting over $30 million a year instead of 25.
Insane. I wonder how the Niners will spend zone this one.
I want John Lynch to just come out and just be like, well, we had to do it. We had no choice. We were held hostage. Yeah. The Niners have, by the way, like on a serious note, the Niners have had a terrible offseason in a lot of ways. Yes. I mean, Ricky Pearsall, thank God he's all right. Like,
correct.
Jesus, man. It's a robbery attempt, and I guess from what I read, it seemed like there was an alleged like a tussle over the gun, and both men got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, I mean, the bullet went in his chest and out his back, and somehow he's all right. I mean, thank God bless him. Hopefully he's back soon. But I mean, and the whole summer he had been dealing with, football-related injuries.
Mm.
You have Williams, who held out until September 3rd. You have Brandon Ayuk, who held out, and then this, as you point out, immediate post-contract beef, which is about a rare form of beef.
Uh-huh.
They never fixed the rest of their offensive line. Greenlaw is obviously still out.
Mm-hmm. Scott him.
It's not been great, man. Like, it's not been an offseason where you're like, yeah, things went well. Like, it's been a lot of stuff. Like, McCaffrey's coming back to practice, but he basically missed all summer with a calf injury, which those things tend to linger. Like, it's just been not great. Not a great offseason for San Francisco.
Less than ideal is how some would describe it.
Correct.
The Ricky Pearsall news is legitimately insane. It's tough, man. That's like the Brian Robinson I remember a couple of years ago. There was kind of a similar situation where he was shot as well. I don't know how he gets out of that without like more serious injuries than what he had. I mean, I think he was still in serious condition, but like that could have got real bad real quick. But talking of just the Niners, you think of holdouts. There are still a couple of holdouts going around on the National Football League. Hassan Reddick, obviously, and Jamar Chase is the big one. I do love the daily tweet notifications, Matt, that I get of like what Jamar Chase is doing and when he's showing up to things, because it seems like he is always either. I think the other day he was late to practice but showed up in street clothes, and then it was he's early to practice today but still in street clothes, and it's just like I love the concept.
Things are going well when the good news is that he showed up in street clothes earlier.
Early, yeah, he was early.
It's like, well, now he's dedicated. He's in some slides, and he's feeling good. He's feeling good in them. Okay, great. The Jamar Chase thing really. So like, I want to write a column at some point for us. So I have not brought this to my editor yet, but I like. To me, the Jamar Chase thing comes down to one very simple question. if you're the Bengals, are you planning on paying Jamar Chase at any point in time? Are you planning on giving him a second contract, in other words? If the answer to that question is yes, then just pay him. Like, he's cheaper now than he's going to be in 2 years from now.
Yeah.
If the answer to that question is no, then trade him and get a boatload for him. And maybe use some of the money you're not paying him to sign T. Higgins. You know? And the other part of that, the other tentacle to that, if the answer is no, is if you're not going to pay him, why? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
You know? Like, that's like if the Chiefs just didn't pay Travis Kelce a second contract. They're like, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What is the point of all this? And I know everybody watching this show is like, good, let the Bengals rot. I get it. But like, from a football, like just analyzing it from a football standpoint, I really think a big part of this is, let's say Jamar Chase is going to be in line for $90 million guaranteed. The second that he signs his contract, that guaranteed money goes into escrow.
Yeah.
But it goes into escrow, Jamar Chase gets the interest off that money, not Mike Brown. And I really think with Mike Brown having $90 million in the bank for an extra couple of years and getting that interest, that's a lot of money. Like, let's face it, these guys don't have their money sitting in First National, okay? It's invested. And when that money's invested and it's making 10%, that's a lot of money for Mike Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clark Hunt, that's a rounding error, okay? Like Clark Hunt's like, like 18 million? What do we, that's like if you or I found like a $5 bill in like our jeans. You know, oh, wow, awesome, great. You know, Clark Hunt doesn't care about the interest. Mike Brown cares. I think it's a big part of this. And I think if you're Jamar Chase, your base salary this year is a little over $1 million. Like, you might just be willing to sit there and go, hey, look, man, I'll give up $300,000 this year to prove a point and to keep myself healthier. And I really am to the point, I think he's going to miss that game in Kansas City. I think he's going to play in it. I mean, I really, like, he's in street clothes now. We're in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's playing against New England. That I don't think's happening.
Right.
Well, week 2 is Kansas City. And I got to tell you, if you're him, if you really want to make a point, that's the game you miss. Nobody gives a shit if you miss the game against New England.
Mm-hmm.
You miss that game in Kansas City, let's face it. If the Bengals go to Kansas City without Jamar Chase, they're not winning that game. They're just not. The Chiefs are going to put 9 guys on T. Higgins. They're big, okay, beat us any other way. There's no more Tyler Boyd. There's no more Joe Mixon. The line's not good. Burrow's not running for 100 yards. He's not Lamar back there. Like, if they go to Kansas City without Jamar Chase, they're going to have a pretty rough time winning that game.
Yeah.
You think that's lost on him? And for everyone who has said to me in the last couple of days, well, he's not going to miss that game. He hates the Chiefs. Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't think that's going to factor in. I mean, I really don't think that's going to factor into a negotiation of $140 million. Or I don't think he's going to go, well, yeah, but I really can't stand Mahomes. So, like, that's not how this works. I think, genuinely, that if he's not back in the next, we're recording this on Tuesday morning, 72 hours, probably not playing against Kansas City. And if he does, he's probably severely limited. Like, they will, kind of like when Chris Jones came back in Jacksonville and the Chiefs kind of played him like, sparingly in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Jamar Chase doesn't practice once. Like, I mean, it's like he's just going to roll into town. I'm sure he's in good shape, but like there's shape and there's football shape. Like,
right.
This is a real thing with Cincinnati. We're to the point now where this is like, okay, this really could stretch into the season.
Yeah, it's good if you're a Chiefs fan. I know a lot of Chiefs fans probably are okay with it. And I know I can already see the comments. I should have addressed this earlier in the podcast. The hat I'm wearing is not a Bengals hat. It's a Tiger Woods hat. It's a goat with tiger stripes on. Tiger Woods.
It's a fucking Bengals hat.
I tweeted a picture of myself with this hat on, and people are like, "You're wearing a Bengals hat," and I was like, "That's not true," which is blatantly not true. And it's had about Tiger Woods, and they're like, we don't care. It's a Bengals fan. I was like, that's absolutely insane. There's no room for interpretation. But anyway, I just saw this tweet come through a little bit ago from Ian Rappaport. With Trent Williams ending his holdout, there's one left. Jets pass rusher Hassan Reddick. Coach Robert Saleh said today there is nothing to report as far as playing on Monday Night Football. He says, if and when he shows up, we'll put him through some work with the training staff to see where he's at.
If and when.
Uh-huh.
There's just...
Tough.
How do you trade for a guy who has made it very apparent he wants a new contract and you just had no idea about that? You're like, I don't know, maybe.
It's wild. It really is. They're just like, oh no.
And I'm sorry.
How did this happen?
Not to get off on a tyrant. This is why when people are like, well, how could you not have the Jets win the division? It's like, this is why. Okay? This is why. I had them in the playoffs. I'm terrified to even have them in that. But I was like, well, they're talented enough. Like, they got to meander their way to 10 games. Every year, and maybe it's the New Yorker and me who grew up around the Jets my entire life, every year you listen to this shit. There's always some reason why the Jets are going to be real. Oh, Rex Ryan's got the defense going. It's like, yeah, that's nice if Mark Sanchez is quarterback.
Right.
Oh, Brett Favre's in town, so that's nice. He's 40 years old. Like, you went through this as a kid, is a New Yorker forever with the Jets. Like, they've got this, they've got that. Herm's in town now. Blah, 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 blah. You're like, yeah, all right. And the last 12 years have been nothing but a shit show. They have sucked year in and year out. They've not made the playoffs since 2011. Okay? 2011. Were you even in high school in 2011?
No, for the fall of 2011, I was not. The fall of 2012, yes, I was in 8th grade.
I mean, like, the Jets have blown chunks for 12 years running now. And I'm just supposed to look at the Jets and be, it's fine. Trust them. They've got Robert Saleh and ayahuasca. Like, what am I basing my trust off of with the Jets? Right. Vibes? No. Like, health? No. History and culture and organizational stability? No. So I'm basing it off of what? That a bunch of guys who get hurt all the time are going to stay healthy? Like, I feel like I'm a dope for picking them to make the playoffs, you know. But I'm like, well, I just feel like if I'm fading the Dolphins, then like I've kind of got to, you know, say, well, then somebody's going to replace them. And I do believe in the Jets more than Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. But like, this is why if you're a Chiefs fan, soak it all in and live it up. Because all these other teams are looking, you're like, they got a problem, they got an insurmountable problem, they got an insurmountable problem. Then you're the Chiefs, you're like, man, I don't know who cornerback 4 is. You know? I mean, that's like the big overriding concern going into week 1. It's like I keep seeing people be like, what about corner 2? Like, you know, Jalen Watson can play football.
Yeah.
You know, Jamar Connor can play football. Joshua Williams to some degree is a serviceable. Like, what is the worst thing that's going to happen with that group? Like, you know, like, oh yeah, well, when we play a team that, you know, can really go 3 wide, devastating, it's a concern. Okay, fine. Sure. They play a little more zone that week. I don't know, man. The Jets, to me, are just the most unserious franchise. Like, I feel like they're just going to go to San Francisco and get their teeth kicked in week 1.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to spend the entire next week being like, oh boy, A-Rod had some cryptic messages in the presser. You know, sounded like maybe a week 4 retirement. We're going to have to wait and see. Like, I feel like that's where we're headed.
I would love it if, like, he retires at halftime. So, you know what? It's like, you know what? I think I'm done. Manicast schedule was just announced as we recorded this podcast. The Manicast will be live for both Chiefs Monday Night Football games.
Yeah.
So,
by the way,
big draw.
I know we're getting close to wrapping, but as an aside, Peter Schrager, who is known as like maybe the most on point prognosticator of the last handful of years.
Yeah.
No Super Bowl pick yet. Made his playoff picks. Would you like to take a guess? No order, just who are the 7 AFC teams he's got?
Okay. Chiefs.
Yep.
Ravens?
Yep.
The Bengals sneak in there.
No.
Oh gosh, is there another AFC North team?
No.
Okay, so I was gonna say the Steelers. So I'm glad that I got that cleared up. Bills.
Yep, wild card.
Bill. Oh, okay. Dolphins then.
No.
Jets.
Top seeded Jets.
No.
The number 1 seed in the conference, your New York Jets.
So who does he have? Does he have Texans winning this now?
Life and thrash them. I'll tell you what, as a New Yorker, there'd be nothing better than covering that game for us and looking down at Fireman Ed, just staring blankly in despair at the field as the Chiefs are just rolling Nathaniel Hackett. There would be nothing more enjoyable than that. But yeah, so we got the Jets. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, the Jets are the 1 seed, the Chiefs are the 2 seed, the Ravens are the 3 seed, and the Bills are the 5 seed.
Texans in there?
No.
Wow.
No Texans, no Bengals, no Steelers, no Browns, no Dolphins.
So let's get the Colts in there.
Nope.
Okay, so the Jaguars, I assume?
Jags are the 4 seed.
Okay, what in the world?
We
Okay.
got 6 and the 7 seed left.
And I've basically exasperated all the logical options of who is going to make the playoffs. Let's see. Did I say Chargers? Did he have the Chargers make it?
Chargers are the 7 seed.
That's awful.
A staggering choice for the 6 seed.
Oh, gosh. Have I been close? Have I been close to this team?
Oh, bro. We couldn't be further away from this team.
Oh, Lord. I don't know. You're going to have to tell me. I can't. No shot. He has 3 AFC West teams making it. That's awful. That is bad. I'm sorry.
Here's my guy. But,
I'm sorry. That's bad.
The man went all in.
Denver would have been legitimately the last team I would have guessed. It would have been like, okay, I'm missing one AFC team. I guess I'm going to say Denver. And you would have been like, yeah, that's who it was. Would have legitimately been my last guess. I would not have guessed Denver.
Not even 7. The 6 seed. Okay? The 6 seed.
Unreal.
Kyle Brandt has the Steelers making it. Also has, which isn't like insane.
Right.
But also has the, let's try and make sure I'm right with this. Yes. Also has the Cardinals making the playoffs.
He also doesn't have I believe I saw that one. He doesn't have the Bengals in it, right?
I'm trying to pull up his bracket here.
Yeah, I thought I saw a screenshot of it or something that was going around of like what is going on, like the Cardinals.
Okay, I got it up. I got
over
it
the Eagles or something.
NFC, Kyle Brandt, Cowboys, Falcons, Rams, Lions. Okay. Wildcard teams, Niners, Bears, Cardinals.
Yeah, no Eagles on that one.
No Eagles on that one. His AFC teams, Ravens, Bills, Texans, Chiefs. No water, just winning the divisions.
Yeah.
Steelers, Dolphins, Chargers. So no Bengals for him either. But like, I can't kill those. Like that's like not like irrational. Akmir Bajavia has, I won't go to the NFC. In the AFC, Bills, Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, Bengals, Jets, Chargers. Okay. And then Jamie Iredall has Dolphins winning the AFC East.
Okay.
Texans, Chiefs, Ravens. She has the Bills and the Jets both as wildcard teams. So 3 out of the AFC East. And here come the Titans.
No shot.
This 7, got to give it to her. Really went out there with that one. Also, her teams in the NFC, none of their picks are crazy except like the Cardinals are kind of like a staggering choice.
Yeah.
Everybody else at the NFC is like pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
The AFC is just a casserole of nonsense. Like the Titans. I in one way I kind of respect it. Like what the hell? But like,
right? Why
the
not?
Broncos are just a stat. Like,
that's a bad one.
If the Broncos make the playoffs, I'll eat all the crow in the world. Like if Sean Payton, I'll tell you right now, they make the playoffs. I don't care if the Chiefs go 17-0. Sean Payton's coach of the year.
Yeah, probably.
Like that's insane.
I think if the Chiefs go 17-0, Andy Reid doesn't even get coach of the year because of just the narrative-based award of it. Yeah. I think it's going to do it for this week's edition of That Football Show. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Let us know how much you like the show. We'd love to hear that from you guys. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating, interview, like, and subscribe on YouTube as well. We'll be back next week. Matt will be in KC. I will be right with the world of Chiefs football. We'll be back on Thursday night to kick off the NFL season. We will see you guys afterwards. We will have the live KCSN postgame show. Make sure to be tuned into that there. Jeff Schwartz will be joining us for the KCSN postgame shows this year, so make sure you are locked in there. We'll have the link made so you guys can just go right to YouTube right after the game gets done to be celebrating the Chiefs win with us. So for Matt Verderame, I'm Franklin. We will talk to you guys next week.